Welcome everyone to our January guest speaker event. We'll get started in a few minutes, so feel free to say hi in the chat box.
All right, welcome Alliance Host members to our January guest speaker event. I'm Mansa, your Alliance Hostess Secretary, and this is Sujit Abugoni, our January guest speaker. We are so excited to have everyone members to our January guest speaker event and ask some questions throughout the event. Secretary, and this is Sujit Abugoni.
Good evening. I'm Sonia. Just to introduce myself, I'm a sophomore council member of Alliance HOSA, assisting the secretary. And I'm so excited to be here with all of you tonight to learn more about medical school and Sujit.
So just a reminder, we're going to have a QR code for attendance at the very end. So be sure to be curious, ask questions, and stay the whole time. Before we begin, I'd like to briefly introduce our CTSO organization to our new members. So HOSA is a student-led healthcare organization that strives to prepare students to be the future of healthcare. Through Alliance Academy's HOSA chapter, we bring to you these monthly guest speakers with a wide range of specialties and from all around the globe. Now, without further ado, let's meet our guest speaker. So tonight's guest speaker is Sujit Abugoni, one of Coach's past students, and on behalf of Alliance HOSA, we welcome you with nothing but open arms. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. It's honestly such a pleasure having a chance to speak to all of y'all.
All right, before Sonia and I start asking our questions, we want you to know that the floor is open for questions throughout the session. So now we're going to open the floor and start up the chat box for any and all questions from our members. So I'll go ahead and start up our Q&A session. So Sujit, let's start from the beginning of it all. So what inspired you to dive into the healthcare field in the first place?
I honestly think that my first experience with healthcare was honestly in high school. We had this thing called the healthcare pathway, and I got hands-on experience being able to volunteer and learn more about basically what the healthcare field has to offer me. And by going around the hospitals and even having like an internship my senior year at Lambert High School, I really got an interest in like the way um, our healthcare system works. And like medical school was something that I've always wanted to do. So I applied for the Bsmd program, and thankfully I got in and made sure everything was set there, and now I'm here.
I have a question. Could you walk through your college journey?
Yeah,
Like,
absolutely. So are we talking about specifically the Bsmd program?
oh no, just like medical school in general.
Okay, so like as in like applications and everything.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So basically, with medical school, it doesn't really matter what major you take in undergrad, right? As long as you have a specific set of prereqs, you can have whatever major you're in, and it's just basically you get your prereqs, you get a bunch of rec letters, make sure that you're thoroughly engaged in your community. Doing a lot of volunteer service. Research is very good, and the application process is a little bit different than basically like our basic undergrad applications. So you don't have a common app per se, but there is this AMCAS application. It's called the American Medical Colleges Association, and you basically submit your application there. You go ahead and take your MCAT, and depending on which colleges you apply to, you can get secondaries and interviews, right? And you fill out your secondaries, and basically those are a better way for the college to understand who exactly you are and what kind of a person you are and the personality that you're going to be bringing to their campus, and whether or not you're a right fit for being a physician, right? And after that, you go through interviews, and interviews are different per the different colleges you apply to. But the one that I did, MCG, we have this thing called MMIs, and basically they're personalized interviews where you are given a scenario and they ask you how you'd respond to it, right? And depending on how you respond to, let's say, um, a scenario regarding a patient who's in distress, or what you would do when you encounter things like academic dishonesty, they really gauge like what kind of a person you are, and they accept you or don't. So yeah, we can like talk about the exact prereqs that you need and everything, but that's just a general like overstatement of how it works.
Now, Sujit, you are in the Bsnd program, right?
So yeah, I am.
Okay, so does that change the scope, the whole timeline of from undergrad to medical school?
Yeah, so basically the way the timeline works is normally traditional students would go through the 4 years of undergrad, take some time to apply to medical school, go through the rounds of interviewing and everything, and see if they got in. But with BSMD, it's a little bit different. So you go through 3 years of undergrad, and then you have admission into Medical College of Georgia, right? And the first 3 years of undergrad, it's a little different. You are made to take a bunch of courses that specifically tailored to make you do the best you can in your MCAT and also prepare you for medical school. They do a really good job of preparing you, and like having a 3-year undergraduate experience as opposed to like the traditional 4 year. People are people are afraid. Oh, like do you get the full scope of like, are you really like ready to become a physician? But the university does a wonderful job of assigning mentors, advisors, and various like opportunities to get involved in your community, get volunteer hours, get clinical experience as well as research to make sure you're the perfect fit for MCG. And I'm really glad to have been able to be a part of the program. It's really taught me a lot, and yeah.
What's your recommendation for high schoolers who want to be a healthcare professional when they're older?
I think what you guys are doing right now is honestly phenomenal. Making
Mhm.
sure that you get early head start in things like volunteering, figuring out exactly what you want to do in the future at such an early age is it's just commendable. It's amazing. But maybe like the first steps to get into the whole like idea understanding of like what you want to do with medical school or going into medical school, looking at the different undergraduate programs that are out there, their mission statements, and whether or not you align with those, and seeing if that actually will help you become a physician in the future, if that's what you want to do, right? But another really big important thing that I think that students in high school should look into doing, if they're interested in the healthcare field, is getting their feet wet. Looking into programs other than just like volunteering, like internships, maybe like you guys have an EMS program, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, we do.
programs like that. It's a really good way to get your feet wet, and I think that's just the best way to get started.
So the BSMD program, you kind of have to decide that as a senior in high school. So what was the thought process and the actions that kind of went through your head when you decided in your mind that this is what I wanted to do?
Right. So I'm sure a lot of seniors right now, they're like, listening in, are probably like thinking about some of the same things, right? When I was in your guys' shoes, I had a couple of acceptances to like Mercer, UGA, and I got like the BSMD program acceptance didn't come in for a long time. So I actually did pay my deposit for Mercer, and I was locked in, and I got the acceptance, and like I had a dilemma, right? Like, hey, like this is a really good opportunity for me, but I also locked in like my deposit, and also this is where I thought I was gonna go. Um, I think the thought process that went through was just sitting down, looking at my options, and seeing what exactly I wanted to do with my life. And as a senior, I wasn't that wise. But looking back now, like the best decision that I could have made was, go ahead and accept my offer into the BSMD program. And that was because I really had a drive to be a part of the medical field. And I found that I thought that the best way to do so was through the program. And now I'm here.
What would you say is the hardest part about being a medical student?
That's a really good question, actually. So, the hardest part about being a medical student is adjusting to the types of studying there are out there, right? So,
Mhm.
in high school and for the majority of undergrad, the way I would study is I'd look at my PowerPoint slides and take my notes and everything. But in medical school, it's not that easy. So, I would learn maybe a month or even sometimes like 2 months worth of material in a week. It's just kind of like drinking out of a fire hydrant. I'm pretty sure you guys have heard that from other students before, but it's manageable. The thing is, you have to understand the best way that you can study, right? For some people, that's flashcards. For other people, it's making like diagrams, working on like teaching other people, and it's just a trial and error process. And yeah, for me, like honestly, the hardest part about like medical school in general was finding my style of studying, getting my feet on the ground and being able to start running, right? But it all comes with time. And that's one of the biggest things I can advise you guys. Don't be overwhelmed. Things are going to happen at its pace. And the biggest thing that you can do is just to get yourself ready for it, right? Starting slow, taking bite-sized approaches to your big goals and dreams and aspirations. That's how you get through it, and just making sure that you keep on moving forward regardless of maybe taking like a little hit here and there or taking one step back. Making sure that you come forward, take 2 steps forward, and keep on pushing. That is probably the biggest advice I can give you guys when it comes to just the healthcare field or even like college in general, because as long as you keep moving forward, that's all that matters. You're going to get to your destination.
Now, when we talk about these obstacles and kind of finding the balance of med school and just life, how do you do it all?
I'm going to be honest, it's a work in progress. You never truly have a fix all rhythm or like a formula to balance your work life and your social life. I'm still working on it to this day. But one thing I can tell you that's worked for me and some of my peers is making a list of priorities, right? Prioritizing your studies, let's say the gym, or saying, hey, like I want to make sure that I want to do this amount of hours on my hobbies each week. And that's a really good way to ground yourself and make sure that you're, doing things for your soul, as well as making sure you're keeping up to date on all your information that they throw at you. Priorities, and also making a schedule. I think scheduling is a very big thing that's overlooked by many students, especially me. Like when I was undergrad, I did not use a schedule at all. But over the years, I've really gotten to understand that having a to-do list or a schedule that you're willing to go ahead and mentally check off throughout the day is one of the best ways to stay on track when it comes to conquering all of the material that you need to, as well as having some free time, downtime to go watch a movie with friends or have a dinner with somebody.
What extracurriculars do you do?
That's a really good question. So currently I have a couple, but maybe something that would be more beneficial to you guys would be speaking on some of the extracurriculars that I did in undergrad or maybe high school, right? So in high school, I was definitely part of HOSA. HOSA was very integral to my growth as an individual. Going to competitions was amazing. I met so many of my friends through there, lots of connections. I was able to compete. I got so many volunteering opportunities through there. Your officer team is phenomenal, guys. Like being able to set up things like this, it's great. Being able to just be part of a community was probably the biggest thing that HOSA was able to offer me in high school. Other than HOSA, some of the other extracurriculars that I was part of are service-based organizations. I remember being part of Key Club, which was cool. I don't know, do you guys have that? Like, I'd say like
Yeah,
maybe like service-based organizations are one of the biggest impacts on my growth as an individual, because they really got me to think about, hey, like who am I as a person, and got me to experience like my community at a deeper level than just going to, let's say, class, right? Hanging out with my friends. Um, another another suggestion that I'd may add is doing extracurriculars that you genuinely have an interest in, right? Um, it can be really tempting to try to bump up your resume with like a bunch of different extracurriculars, but the thing is, whenever you go to interview for these colleges or like med school in the near future, they're not gonna sit there and look at your resume and be like, "Wow, this kid's in 20 different clubs." They're gonna ask you, "What did you take away from your experience in X, Y, Z?" And if you can't answer that with an answer that like truly I like gives them an idea of who you are and what you were able to take away from those experiences, it doesn't matter, right? So yeah, I think that's it. Making sure you're part of service-based organizations, organizations that you generally have an interest in, and yeah.
As you just said, HOSA had a huge impact on you.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You need to tell us about your experience with Coach in high school as well.
We had a great relationship, I swear. So like she was part of the faculty when I was in my sophomore year, and we have so many stories. At first, like I think Mrs. Dickerson, did she still teach you guys, or like how does it like? Let's just coach. Okay, so yeah, yeah, so our healthcare pathway was like split up into a couple of different like progressive classes that you have to take. I'm sure it's the same now, but I had coach my second year of high school, and she was just so enthusiastic. A lot of like the things that I wanted to do. Actually, wait. My second year of high school, I had a different teacher. Never mind. Coach was my third year teacher. We don't really talk about her. I'm sure Coach can give you guys a better better story about that. I don't know if I can share. But basically, Coach really did get me like just so enthusiastic about the medical field. Like having her in class, like we were able to share like some like personal stories, as well as making sure that I really had an accountable like adult that could help me through life. She was just so influential in my growth as an individual when it came to not just like finding myself and who I am, but also like my way through the medical, like just medical field in general. Like I think I kept on asking her for letters of recommendation until I got into medical school, and I probably might keep on doing so into my residency. She's just a wonderful teacher, and she's just had such a great impact on my life. But yeah, you guys should ask her about a hole in a wall. Did she tell you guys that story by any chance?
No. Noted. We will ask her.
Yeah.
So you've probably faced challenges in Augusta and in college. What are some of those challenges, and what was your motivation to get through those?
That's a really good question. So I think the biggest challenge that I had to face was the idea of being humbled. Like the thing is like go like where we come from, we're like really like we're pushed to be like the top of our class, or if we get a B or like a C, we really take that to heart, and we really like we take that as a failure, right? I remember my second year of undergrad, I had like one of my first not so great exam scores, and I remember completely shutting down. And I thought to myself, is this really what I want to do? Am I cut out for becoming a physician? Am I cut out for even getting my diploma for my major, right? And that's the thing. It's I guess it's like being humbled and understanding that if you don't fail, you're not going to be able to learn lessons and become a better person from it, right? If you keep thinking that XYZ is the only way that you can accomplish a certain goal and keep going about that path, regardless of, like setbacks, you're not going to be able to further your character and make the positive changes that you need to accomplish your goals. But yeah, so some like that was probably one of my biggest setbacks, understanding how to deal with failure when it came to things like maybe like test scores, right? And changing up my study plan. Another big obstacle in my undergraduate career was definitely the MCAT. I'm sure a lot of y'all that are thinking about medicine or already heard about the tortures. um, it was it was a very interesting point in my life. I when I was first studying for it, I didn't really know what to do, and I found myself kind of just fumbling. Um, but I can tell you, having a good support group around you, like whether it be your friends, your parents, or maybe even like a, a close like acquaintance that can help you through the tough times. That's one of the best ways to get through obstacles. Having a really good support group. I remember to this day when I was studying for the MCAT, my mom was always there to like make sure that I was like like eating, and every single day after I finished studying for that day, it'd be like 10 hours. One of my friends that coach also taught, Praveen, we'd just go and like skate for like maybe like 3 hours. He was also studying for the MCAT, by the way. So yeah, like obstacles come and go, but having a proactive like way to deal with your stresses is probably the best way to get through those obstacles.
So you said you took the MCAT.
Hmm.
What was your study routine like for that? How
Um,
did you study for that, and how long did you study?
right. So with the BSMD program, you have a couple of time restraints. So like I'm sure like you guys have thought about pros and cons to different programs that you're like offered, right? And one of the pros for the BSND program is obviously you spend 3 years in undergrad and you go into medical school. But so the MCAT was probably one of the biggest cons to being in the BSND program. Instead of like maybe the traditional route, having like a summer like in your junior or senior year to study for the MCAT, we were expected to take our MCAT after our second year of college, right? But the university did a wonderful job of preparing us. We had all the courses that we needed to take before we started studying for it. But basically, my study routine was I think I took 7 weeks to study for the MCAT, and it was like 10 hours a day. And for the MCAT, you have seven different subjects that you're tested on, and they're grouped into four different sections, right? And I basically split my 7 weeks like half and focus completely on content review the first 3.5 weeks. So I had a couple of books from Kaplan. I'm sure you guys have like used Kaplan for SAT and everything, right? So Kaplan offers a 7 book review guide for MCAT. I definitely recommend. And basically 10 hours a day for 3.5 weeks, reading the books, making flashcards, taking notes. And then the last 3.5 weeks, I did just like strictly, what's it called? Review, in the sense of taking my practice exams and scoring myself and seeing where I can improve, and, reviewing the concepts that I had to touch up on. I don't think that's the best way to study for the MCAT, though. Obviously, like we were given a summer to take the MCAT, and that's not the typical time span to take it. I know a lot of my peers take maybe like 3 months of dedicated study time um, to go about it. It honestly changes depending on person to person, right? As I said before, like your study habits will evolve as you grow older, right? Right now it'll be like taking notes. Maybe in the future it'll be repetitive, like flashcards and everything, right? That's just something to keep in mind of. No one study plan is perfect for everyone, right? So that's just something that worked for me, like 7 weeks, half content review, reading the books, notes, and the other half just strictly exam prep. But some other study methods include making flashcards throughout the entire, like like maybe 3 months, and taking periodic exams, like practice exams throughout the entire 3 months, rather than strictly focusing on like like maybe like content review versus just like exam prep like I did.
The MCAT, I think it's more than 6 hours of just pure testing, right?
Right, right. But I took it during COVID, so mine wasn't as long as like the MCAT is normally is. I think ours was 5 hours and 45 minutes.
Okay. Do they
Yeah.
take off units or something?
No, no, no. So it was just so the test was like shortened by 15 minutes per section, I believe.
Yeah.
And they shortened the number of what's it called? The number of questions you had. But at the end of the day, it's graded. It's like statistically made, so it's the scores are reflective of how you actually did, rather than like
Mhm.
you didn't really have an advantage for taking it during COVID versus not.
Yeah.
What I'm trying to say.
But I mean, 5 hours, 6 hours, that is an insane amount to just sit and take that test. So could you talk to us about that test taking experience as well?
Right. So so during COVID, when I did take the MCAT, it was something that I wasn't. I'd practice a lot, like I said, right? So I spent like 3.5 weeks just solely getting myself to be able to take that kind of a test, right? I'm sure you guys have heard it before, but it's honestly a marathon. Um, you have to know how you can get through like such an extended period of time, just sitting down and concentrating. And that might be one of the biggest challenges of taking the MCAT itself. Personally, like I found myself goofing off like the first week or so, like trying to prepare for sitting in one place for that long. But by the time you get to taking the MCAT itself, if you've done the amount of practice that you need to, you'll be more than prepared. It's just repetition. You know, everyone gets good at it if you do it enough. I do remember though. This is actually this is really funny. So you get breaks in between your sections, and I remember I took my chemistry section, and I walked out not feeling so great because I ran out of time towards the end. And I walked into the restroom, and there's this guy, and he just like downed a Red Bull right in front of me, crushed up the can, threw in the trash can, and I was like, that was pretty hard, huh? And he's like, no, it's okay. You just walk right out. But the thing is, like, don't let things like that scare you. It's just like I look back on it and kind of laugh now because I remember being so scared, whether or not like I was gonna do as well as him. But as I said before, it's individual based, right? How you study or how you do on an exam, how you pace yourself is going to be very different from the person right next to you. So comparing yourself to how another person works is just going to do you like more harm than good, right?
Very true. Could you share some of your college experiences at Augusta and like some fun memories and your favorite subjects too?
Right. Okay. So that's three different things. Let's work backwards, right? So I'll start with my favorite subjects. I think a lot of people might disagree with me on this, but one of my favorite subjects was honestly organic chemistry. My professor was he was so well spoken. He really knew how to teach that course, and he could make like a fifth grader understand what organic chemistry was. He was really and it's just about finding those kind of mentors that are able to have the patience and talk to you about their courses, and professors that are genuinely passionate about what they're doing. You know, that's really what's going to pique your interest in a subject or whatnot. But I really did enjoy organic chemistry because after you get past the whole learning a new language barrier, it's honestly a puzzle. You know, you like move different like functional groups around. You do your little what's it called? You count the electrons, and it's a lot of fun. I liked organic chemistry, but more than organic chemistry, maybe my favorite subject might have been biochem. I really enjoyed learning the like the physiology behind how like the human body works at like basically a cellular level. It's really, if anything, it's really humbling, seeing all your proteins or learning about how all your proteins work to sustain your body. It's crazy. I still use my biochemistry knowledge to this day. It's crazy. My major, by the way, I don't know if we talked about it, was cell and molecular biology. So there's a lot of emphasis on biochem, and yeah. So what was the next one? My college experiences.
Yeah.
Um, Academically speaking, one of my favorite college experiences was I was like very like involved in MSF. It's Doctors Without Borders. Do you guys know what that is? Basically, it's this club that's like that's like a student organization that's affiliated with an NGO that provides underserved communities around the world with first aid and like medical relief. And we threw so many fundraisers and got to engage the entire student body in lots of events. I genuinely love that. I think we had a really interesting fundraiser idea. So I told the entire like club that if we raise about $500 for this one fundraiser, I'd jump in the river, the Savannah River. Like I don't know if you guys know where that is, but like we're like right next to the Savannah River. And my fellow like colleague, like he was the president, and he said he would dye his entire beard blue. And it's just little things like that, you know, like it's a lot of fun. But outside of academics, my friends and I, we were like prominent in intramurals. Intramurals is a lot of fun. By the way, intramurals is like not club sports. Do you guys? Okay, so it's like you make your own team and you play like, let's say like flag football, ultimate frisbee, things like that. And different like majors have their own teams. The med school has its own team. The dental college has its own team. And it's really cool to see like a bunch of different people come together like from their different backgrounds to throw a freaking football around the field. You know, it's like it's awesome. That's probably one of my favorite things that I did when I was in undergrad. What was the other question?
Just college experiences at Augusta.
Right. So are you guys interested in like I guess extracurriculars that we have here in like
Yeah.
yeah, okay. So so for for the more social like people in here, we have a Greek life. I wasn't part of it because I couldn't balance that with like all the schoolwork that I had to do. But Greek life here is very like it's very popular, and I have a lot of my friends who were in Bsmd actually go through Greek life here, and they only had positive experiences. Um, the brotherhood or whatever, it's not negative at all. They're very collaborative. They help you with your schoolwork and everything, and they really teach you how to, you know, like tackle the world, and they help you just become like a better student and an individual that's ready for life beyond. Other extracurricular organizations that Augusta had to offer include there was a big focus on medical organizations in general, right? So I remember I was talking about MSF, Doctors Without Borders. That was a big one. They don't have HOSA here. I don't know if you guys are familiar. Like there is a collegiate level of HOSA, but I don't think it's as big as the high school one. But there's honestly like if you can think about a specific interest, there's an organization for you here. And if you can't, that's okay. Like you can make you can have a whole startup. It's really easy, and the student government is very proactive about making sure that students have an opportunity to explore their interests and hobbies outside of academics, and that's something that's really great at Augusta.
All right, so we're going to move on to some member questions. So feel free, our members, to ask questions. We're just leading the way for you guys.
Cool. So do I just look in the comments?
We'll pin them for you.
Oh, okay.
So Sakshi asks, what was it like at the white coat ceremony? You're wearing a white coat.
Yeah, I actually am right now. Let me see. It has my name on it. Yeah, Coach was actually there for my white coat ceremony, and so was Mrs. Dickerson. It was amazing, honestly. Up until that point, it like being in medical school, like it was kind of like a fever dream. I was like, oh my, like you know, I'm in medical school, but having like that white coat ceremony go on and being like you know coded and having all your friends and family there to support you, it's it's just there's no words to describe it. It just feels great. After I got to see all my buddies, we took pictures. Um, it just made me feel like everything that I was doing up until that point was worth it. You know, it was the first step into becoming a physician, and you know, it was one of my most like fun memories.
Was that last year or was it this year?
That was actually a couple months ago.
Oh,
I think November, October. Yeah,
that's
October.
amazing. So
Yeah.
from med school and then schoolwork for your cell and molecular bio major, could you share your like daily routine as a med student?
Okay, so it varies from day to day,
Right.
but basically one of the advantages of med school is that you, or at least with MCG is very good about making sure that students they cater to the way students learn, and a lot of students learn at their own pace, right? So while we do have lectures every day from Monday to Thursday, they record all their lectures, so you can always look back and see anything that you missed, or not even go to lectures sometimes. But basically, the way my ideal day would be waking up around 7, getting to class by 8. Lectures usually last from 8 to 12, or sorry, 8 to 11. And on Mondays and Fridays, we have this small group learning opportunity called CBL, and basically we sit in a room full of 8 people that you hang out to for the rest of your med school career. And what you do is basically you review cases that have happened in the past. You look at lab values, data, all these things, and basically you put yourselves in the shoes of a physician and walk yourself through the case. And you have preceptors, right? These are going to be like PhDs and physicians that are there to ask you probing questions, to point you in the right direction and whatnot. But we can go into that later. But basically, I have lecture till like 11 or 12, and I take an hour to do uh, like a little bit of review, and I eat lunch. And after that, I might have afternoon class, which is usually like another round of CBL, the opportunity I was just talking about. Or you can have PCL, which is patient-centered learning, which you go into sim labs and practice clinical skills. Um, or I might have anatomy lab, depending on which week it is. And the latest I'll stay on campus with like actual work is like 4 or 5. And after that, it's just studying till maybe like 10, and then I go to the gym for like an hour, come back, finish up anything else I need to do, and try to get like at least 7 hours of sleep. But yeah, that's like my ideal day.
So another one of our hosts and members, Dhruv, he asks, did all of your friends end up graduating? Because you went through med school and you went through the BSMD program. So did everyone in your class graduate?
Okay, so that's a good question. The way the BSND program works is you have 2 opportunities to matriculate into medical school, right? So after your first 3 years, if your GPA isn't a 3.7 or 3.8, I think it's a 3.7. If your GPA isn't a 3.7 math science, or you didn't meet the minimum MCAT requirements, you don't matriculate into medical school. And at that point, you have one more year to basically like fix your GPA or MCAT score. And if all that's well and done, you go ahead and matriculate. But yeah, our class was 24 students. As of now, I think 22 are about to matriculate. But at the end of the day, it's about, like finding your own like passion. Like 2 of my friends that didn't matriculate into medical school, it's not because they weren't capable. They actually did find themselves pursuing other careers, and they're doing excellent where they are right now.
So now for your future, what are some professions that you've been thinking about and you're interested in?
That's a really good question, actually. I love it when I get this question because it's honestly such a process. I think I remember like in undergrad, I was thinking that I wanted to do surgery. Get this, I was almost positive that I wanted to do cardiothoracic surgery. I had no idea like what it takes to become like a surgeon, like the years or whatever. But I was completely set on doing that and that only, right? But the biggest thing that you'll get to understand in medical school is that every week you add more professions onto your list, and you cross out just as many. So so like right now what I'm thinking about doing is radiology. Obviously I'm still in my first year, I have a long way to go, but radiology is something that I've been really interested in. Other things that I've been interested is like internal medicine. So I don't know if you guys know how like residency works yet, but basically in order to like specialize into, let's say, a professions like a cardiologist, a nephrologist, oncologist, hematologist, all these different professions, one of the first residencies that you're going to do is internal medicine. And after you become an internal medicine resident, you can apply to become a fellow, which is all these different specialties that we're talking about, right? So I have a long time to figure out what I want to do, but what's top on my list is probably radiology, uh, internal medicine, and general surgery.
Could you talk more about residency that you want to do?
Yeah, for sure. So radiology is a 5-year residency, and the first year is a transitional year that that generally it can be one of a couple different like a couple different intern years. They call it the intern year, the first year of residency. You can either choose to do general surgery or a year of internal medicine. And if I, like fingers crossed, do get into radiology, I'd proceed to do 4 years of radiology residency. If I wanted to do diagnostic radiology, I'd stop there. But most radiologists do pursue a fellowship, and that's something I'm really interested in doing. So some of the fellowships that they offer are things like interventional radiology, a focus on musculoskeletal, which I am personally the most interested in. Like when you're in medical school, like you get to like experience a lot of different fields in like a short amount of time, and it's a lot, but you tend to gravitate towards a couple of different things. And being in the anatomy lab for as long as like we were, I genuinely fell in love with being able to just like see like all the different ways the body moves. It's crazy. Like I use physics to this day. Like you think about your knee moving, right? There's so many force vectors that act on your knee, like your patella, and like just being able to see like how your body moves in space is something that it's just something that like blows my mind. So, and I think like musculoskeletal like fellowship in radiology would be something that I'd be really interested in.
So is residency more practical and really like a hands-on experience compared to medical school?
Oh yeah. So like at the end of your like 4 year, okay, so let me break this down really quickly. You have 4 years of medical school, right? And traditionally the way it works is your first 2 years of medical school you spend in your basic sciences, right? Um, and like that's like your biochem, anatomy, your physiology for like the things like the different the organ systems, right? um though a traditional medical school approaches this by splitting the first year and second year into normal physiology and pathology. So normal physiology is like how your body normally works, that's your entire first year. And your second year would be like diseases and just any disease state of your body. But what MCG is doing right now is condensing those 4 years into 3, and this is something that I'm really a fan of. So what I found with the whole traditional view of doing medical school was it was kind of disconnected, in my opinion. Learning about the anatomy of the lower extremities a year prior to learning about the pathology of your lower extremities, it's just all over the place. But what the faculty have really devised here was a curriculum that incorporates both normal physiology and pathology at the same time. And you guys are probably like listening to me and you're like, oh, isn't that what it's supposed to be like? Yeah. So like today we just had an exam on like our cardiology module. It was like a weekly quiz, and we learned about the 4 valves of the heart, which you guys definitely know. But like at the same time, not we didn't just stop at like the hemodynamics that the 4 valves are responsible for, but we like went into like extensive detail on things like calcifications, like different pathologies that are associated with your cardiac structures. And yeah, so like that's usually like the first 1.5 year in MCG at least. But your third and fourth year in traditional medical school are clinical rotations. And what you do is you go into the hospitals and you um, basically do rounds and whatnot with attendings. And you're supposed to be, it's almost like working like a part-time job, almost a full-time job, and going home and studying for your boards, which are called shelf exams, and that's your third and fourth year. And after your third and fourth year, you'll graduate. You'll get the big MD letters next to your name, and based on what you match into the residencies, that's basically like training to become a practicing physician in the specialty of your choosing, right? So if I were to match into internal medicine, I would be trained to become a hospitalist, being able to assess like a patient that comes into my clinic and come up with a diagnosis based on what their symptoms are, right? Different residencies follow different guidelines and timelines, but it just depends on what program you're applying to and what their mission statement is. As you guys like progress through like college and like look into applying to medical school or PA school or whatever whatever profession that you guys are interested in, one of the biggest things to understand is making sure that the program's mission statement aligns with what you believe, right? So yeah, that's it. Yeah. We can talk about the MCG curriculum, because I'm sure like I really didn't know much about it till I was in undergrad itself, but it's very different from traditional medical school. Are you guys interested in hearing about that by any chance?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So as I was saying, normally like medical school is 4 years. MCG condenses it into 3 years of rotations and basic sciences. Your first 1.5 years are basic sciences. So what I'm going through right now, you'll have um, 5 different modules. The first one is foundations. So basically, your your infectious diseases, learning about microbes, different antibiotics, cancer, neoplastic malignancies, all that stuff, right? And the second module is musculoskeletal. So this is where you get introduced to your cadaver. And, like I heard a couple of you guys actually got to work on a cadaver. That's pretty crazy. But yeah, you get to work on a cadaver and learn all about the different muscle groups in your body system, obviously your skeletal system, and also your like skin layers and how different pathologies like present and everything. Then the current module that I'm in right now is cardiopulmonary, and that's your lungs, heart, your blood. After this is GIGU, which is genitourinary and sorry, gastrointestinal. And then finally you have brain and behavior, which is going to be like your psychology, psychiatries, and basically the anatomy of the brain and everything like that. And after that, you get shipped off into the clinicals that I was just talking about, where you go around with attendings and spend times in specific rotations. So it could be surgery, family practice, and neurology. Basically, you get assigned to those, and you spend maybe like 6 or 7 weeks at a time learning about exactly how those clinics and everything practice. And you take exams, which tell your attendings whether or not you're competent to continue or not. And based on that, you develop a academic rapport, I guess, and that's how you are competitive enough to get into residencies. Also, there's like the whole like step 1, step 2 thing. Um, it's kind of like SAT and MCAT, but for med.
Nice. We have another question from one of our HOSA members, and Aditi asks, what is the most surprising thing about BSMD and being in medical school that may or may not be true?
Okay, so I think maybe the most surprising thing is that you can always have time to do what you want to do, right? So let's say you're an avid reader, you can always find time to focus on your hobbies, like reading a book or spending time. Like one thing I love doing is like longboarding, right? So like my friends and I, like we make sure we carve out some time throughout the week to do that. The thing is, it's important that you don't get overwhelmed in your, in your college programs and medical school, and make sure that you're really focusing on yourself, because there's always a way to make ends meet, make time for what you really want to do.
Another member asked the biggest downside of taking Bsmd.
Okay, so the biggest thing, like hands down, is gonna be the amount of work that you're gonna do. Like there's no other way to put it. I think the first year that I was taking that I was in BSMD, I was taking maybe 19 credit hours. And like, you guys are probably like sitting there like, oh, like we're in school for 7 hours a day. It's probably not that bad. It adds up. So normally like students are like aim for like 16 to 15 to 17 like credit hours. And you get shoved a lot of courses at your face like very fast. And the thing is, it's easy to get overwhelmed, but as I said before, finding your ability to stay grounded, find your studying method, that's the best way to overcome these challenges. So yeah, the biggest downside, I guess, of BSMD is the amount of work that you're going to have to do, because it's just a shortened program, and you're going to be taking, like I took my capstone course my first semester of my third year of undergrad, and normally people take that in their last semester of their senior year. And yeah, and also obviously the MCAT, you have to take the MCAT your second year.
Now, our last question for the night from one of our hosting members is, how do you handle being overwhelmed and stressed about your academics?
That's a really good question, actually. This is something I think that students really need to think about much earlier than like it's easy to just become stressed and think, oh my goodness, what do I need to do now to handle my stress? But the best way to be proactive in academics and making sure that you are where you need to be is to have like systems in place beforehand, right? So carving out time to, like, I don't know, like go to the gym, or like doing things that you genuinely enjoy throughout the day might be the best way to have some downtime to relieve your stress, and making sure that you cover all your bases when you're going through your courses, right? Having a systematic approach to taking notes, being able to digest all the information in a cohesive manner, obviously. And one of the biggest things that it took me a while to understand in medical school was that you're never going to know it all. It's just impossible, right? But that shouldn't deter you from trying your absolute hardest. Giving 70% of your all is better than quitting at zero because you don't think you can do 100%. So yeah, that is probably one of the biggest things that I can tell you. Um, Being able to understand that you're all you there's no way to know absolutely every single little nitty-gritty detail, but having a way to come at your academics in a manner that works for you, that can give you the best possible score that you think you can do, is the best way to get through it all.
What a helpful session. Thank you so much, Sujit, for your time and joining
Absolutely.
us today. You have truly inspired us to keep pursuing pre-medicine and healthcare. So to close out our event, we'd like to thank you for joining this conversation and all of you guys for making it interactive.
Yeah, thank you so much for tonight. We really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to just talk with our high school students and really just inspire us to hopefully one day be like you. So thank you.
Absolutely, dude. It was such a pleasure being able to talk to you guys.
So for our hosted members, we're going to leave up the QR code for attendance just for another 30 seconds. Remember, to get the credit, you must complete the form before January 31st, which is this Monday. This video will be posted soon on our YouTube channel. So thank you so much, guys, and have a good night.